Good day, peeps. Welcome to Heart Talks. Today, my guest is Mick Harrison, and he's coming from Australia. I met Mick at the Chihuahua Sasquatch Conference last year. Him and Lee were there, came out. Boy, that was a magical weekend for me. I know it had to be just crazy for you guys.
Yeah, it was.
Well, thank you for finally having a talk with me. It's been a while, and I'm glad we finally are getting to it. Now, Mick, I know that you talk about your experience started in 2008, but I was wondering, like, as a child or, in your younger days, was there any indication? Did you have anything multidimensional or mystical or anything happen that would give you the clue that all of this was eventually going to happen?
Not really, to be honest, Sheila. And hello. Not really. I was just one thing I was I used to have a lot of friends, but I was a little bit of a loner in a sense. I used to go off by myself. I had a big patch of bush behind my parents' place, and regularly I used to go down there by myself, and I didn't know why I was going there. But what I will tell you is I have found out since with my wonderful partner, Lee. She does hypnotic regression, and she found out that I was seeing my forest friends down there. Now, I have honestly no conscious recall of that. I know I was extremely scared at night time. I used to go to bed, and then get up in the middle of the night and go and hop into bed with my parents when I was a little kid, and I'm talking back when I was about 5 or 6. But other than that, no. No, I love nature. I used to really enjoy going out and looking at, birds and ducks and things running around. But no, I never had anything that I can honestly recall. Yeah.
Wow. Well, come 2008, you certainly...
A bit of a lead up to the story. I'm an arborist by trade, a tree surgeon, and for years I cleared trees and cut and trimmed trees. And this property where the event happened, I'd been there several times beforehand, and the property was owned by some people that were like, and I'm going to say it, and there's no disrespect because I understand all this, but it was sort of like a white witch and a warlock type person. And this guy, that owned the property used to do smoking ceremonies, with the teepee and all that sort of thing, or the sweat lodge and all that. And at that time, I was not right into all of this sort of thing. I didn't understand it, and I had respect for it, but it didn't really mean much. All of a sudden, I started to get this feeling of being watched. And I'm going to be honest, I've never had it before, but I've had it lots of times since. But at the time, I'd never had it, and I thought, what is this, And I'm sort of looking around, thinking, what's this feeling? It was a really intense being watched feeling, and it got to the point where it actually was physical. And now I'm an ex-hunter. I used to hunt deer and wild pigs and foxes and rabbits and ducks and things. And so I'm there looking around thinking maybe it's an animal looking at me. And, I'm sort of looking up in the trees for a wedge-tailed eagle or a hawk, or looking around for a feral cat or a fox or something. And we do have dingoes in Australia, but where I was, there's no dingoes. And anyway, I just thought, this is weird. So I just went about unpacking my Toyota and getting out my chainsaws and fueling them up and getting all the equipment ready for the day. Look up and I thought, that's the Dauphin. And there's a helicopter over here in the Victorian Police Force, and it's called a Dauphin. It's a French helicopter, and it's a helicopter that you just pick a mile away, and I was in the CFA, the Country Fire Authority, for years, and quite regularly it landed near car crashes and things that we went to, and also I'm right into aviation, so I'm very aware of all different types of aircraft and types of aircraft. And this noise is very distinct. Anyone that knows a Dauphin knows the Dauphin by its noise, and I thought nothing of it, right? I see it. And I said to Tim, oh yeah, there's the police helicopter. This is where it all happened. This was the beginning of the life-changing thing where I did the big 180-degree turn in my life. It was just unbelievable.
The last day of normal.
Oh, yeah. It's the point of about to go down the rabbit hole. And I'm not afraid of the bush, okay? Like, I used to be a hunter, and the only things that scare me here in Australia in the bush are snakes and spiders, because we have some really deadly spiders and deadly snakes. I think Australia's got something like 22 different types of snakes, and most of them are deadly. And I was standing there by myself, and I started to pack up my Toyota, okay? So if you can imagine, it's there, all the cupboards are open, and I'm starting to put away all my stuff. Now, this feeling really got intense, right? And the feeling of being watched got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden, I began to vibrate. And I was vibrating from my coccyx up to the back of my skull here. And now, whenever I told this story years and years ago, back in 2008 onwards, up until about 3 years after the event, until someone pointed it out to me, I used to say that I was vibrating and it felt about the size of a Coca-Cola can, you know, down my back. And then someone pointed out one day, they said that was probably your spine. And I do, you know. Now, this vibration, it was really intense. And then all of a sudden, it began to move out of my body, as in all throughout my body. So it went down my arms, down my fingers, down my legs, down into my toes. My whole body was vibrating. And at one stage, I actually looked at my hands, and I couldn't physically see them doing that, but I could feel them vibrating. And I don't know, honestly, whether I thought it or said it. What the fuck is this? Excuse me swearing. And I remember bending down and picking up a chainsaw and opening the cupboard of my Toyota and putting a chainsaw in. Then I bent down and grabbed the other one, put it in, and I pulled the door back on my Toyota, and I'm looking towards the rear of my Toyota, and I look towards the rear of it to walk around the back of it to, you know, get some more stuff. And I look, and there's this little kid standing there, what I thought was a little child, you know, and I'm in this place really isolated, and, you know, and it's miles from anywhere. And I thought, oh, where'd this little kid come from? And I got hold of the door, and I'm looking, and then I reckon I eyeballed this child for, I guess, I don't know, 10 to 15 seconds. And then I don't know whether I physically said it or mentally thought it, fuck me. And I just suddenly realised this was not a child. This was a little star visitor or an ET or an alien, whatever you want to call them. And I'm just standing there. I've still got hold of the door of my Toyota, staring, because suddenly, you know, my mind had clicked into reality, because I'm thinking a little kid, and hang on a minute, this ain't no little kid. The fear went off the scale, right? I was shitting myself. I just thought, wow. No, I was really, really fearful. The eyes got me, and I'll show you. This is kind of what I saw, okay? And that's almost a direct, almost identical picture of it. Now, in this picture, the eyes don't look quite so bad, but at a distance and seeing it for the first time, unbelievable. I was just absolutely packing my pants. Now, in the industry that I now work in, I'm not an arborist anymore. I do another job, and we have a pain score from 0 being no pain to 10 being the most incredible pain you could ever feel. And for women, I guess childbirth is 10. For men, if I got a chainsaw and cut your arm off now, that's a 10 for a man, you know, pain off the scale. Well, my fear score from 0 to 10 was 15. I was off the scale. Oh, you got no idea. Like, the fear was just phenomenal. Fight or flight come into my mind. You know, it was amazing how that kicked in. I remember going all tense and ready for a fight. It's just really weird, you know. Everything went really quiet. It was really weird, you know, and you hear this, you know, the old, I don't know whether this is the right word, cliche, where, you know, they say you could hear a pin drop. It was just so quiet. Everything just went deafening quiet. I couldn't hear the wind. Like I couldn't hear the leaves rustling. I couldn't hear crickets. I couldn't hear birds. It was just total silence. It's almost like I was in another dimension or something, you know. And I'm looking at this little being, and it's off to my, you know, my left. And for some reason, I honestly don't know how long I looked at it for, and I'm going to guess it was say 30 seconds or more, 40 seconds, might have been a minute. We're just looking at one another, and it's just standing there looking at me. It had its arms down by its side, and it's in a non-threatening pose or stance. And I started to relax, and I felt not threatened. Like initially the fear was through the roof, but things calmed down. Now, I'm not going to say this categorically, but I think it calmed me down. And I think, I don't have any recall of any telepathy or anything, but within me, I felt myself relaxing. Like I was still fearful, but relaxing. I thought, okay, all my cupboards are open on my Toyota. I've still got to pack up. I can't drive through the gate with all the cupboards open. So I'm just going to pack up. And I spent, I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes packing up. I don't know how long it was. Time really didn't exist to me at the time. I went about folding up 2 100-foot hand lines and rolling them up and putting them in the cupboards, my Ds, my shackles, my you know, fuel containers, and all the gear, my helmets and stuff I had to pack away in all these little cupboards in my Toyota. And just every now and then I just turn around and glance, and it was still standing there, you know, and I didn't see it blink, and I didn't see it wave its arms or walk towards me. It was just standing there looking. And then I had to get up on the back of my Toyota to tie on my pole saws. I had 2 pole saws that, you know, extend and you can cut limbs, you know, 3 or 4 meters. And I climbed up onto the back of the Toyota, and I could strap them on so that they wouldn't come off. And I remember turning around and walking back towards the back of the Toyota. So when I'm walking along between my cupboards on the back of my Toyota, I'm looking straight at it. I remember standing up and looking straight at this little being, and it was sort of like a little bit of an acknowledgement with each other. I just sort of gave it like a little nod of acknowledgement or something. I don't know why I did that. I stepped down off the back of the Toyota onto the tow bar, and then I walked around the side of the Toyota to get back in to start it up and drive out. That was the last time I looked at this little star being. You know, I don't know what it was, but after that I just thought, I'm out of here. I remember walking around beside my Toyota, and as I'm walking towards the door, I distinctly remember saying to myself, please don't abduct me, please don't abduct me, please don't abduct me. And now what I now know, I've probably already taken and just brought back. That's my guess. That's what I'm thinking has happened, right? Through what I now know, because at the time I just thought, I've just seen this dude, I want to get out of here. I hopped in my Toyota. I remember shutting the door. I threw the clutch and put the Toyota into neutral, and I turned the key and it started, you know, and you hear all these stories where vehicles won't start and, oh, the engines stop and all that. Well, this thing started. And to me, I'm going to tell you here now, Sheila, this noise of that 2H Toyota engine was like music to my ears. It was just, oh, thank God for that, you know. I put it in gear. I drove out the gate and I turned left onto the dirt road to go back to Yarrick and to go home. And put out of gear, threw on the handbrake, opened the door, and I walked back to the gate. Now, I'm an old, you know, farm boy or whatever. You know, if you find a gate closed, you always close it, or if you find it open, you leave it open. So I walked back to the gate and I walk in, I grab the gate, and I pull it shut, and I reach through and grab the chain and put it over the little, you know, the little horn thing. You put it over on a gate latch. And all I had to do was just go like that and turn my head this time to the right. And I could have been looking at it, but I don't know what it was. I just couldn't look back. Something just wouldn't make me look back. I just said, no, I'm out of your space. I don't want to look back anymore. I've seen enough of you. It's a really weird thing. I don't know why, you know. And so I walked back and I got in the Toyota, And I remember putting it in gear and putting my seatbelt on and shutting the door. And I remember looking up the road straight ahead of me, and I don't know why I thought this. I sort of had this vision of a half a dozen of them walking down the road saying, you ain't going anywhere, you know. I don't know why I thought that. It was bizarre. But anyway, I look up the road and there's nothing there. I look in the mirror, there's nothing there. And in my peripheral vision, I'm half expecting one to be sitting beside me in the Toyota. And again, I don't know why I thought that, but I sort of slightly turned, there's nothing there. And all I had to do was that. And I would have been looking back at it, because by this time it's opposite me. You know, I'm facing down the road and it's off to my left. And I just couldn't look. I just thought, no, I'm going. Now, all this time, my whole body is vibrating, right? The whole time of packing up my Toyota and all that was just an intense vibration. And the only way to describe the vibration, here in Australia, we have a place called Luna Park, and it's a fun place. It's a bit like Disneyland in America, but way smaller. And there's a place there, from memory, there's a thing called the Haunted House. And part of it, when you walk across a certain part of the floor, it vibrates. When you stand on it, when it vibrates, your whole body vibrates, you know, because it's an intense vibration. And that's the only way to describe the feeling I had. It was just really, really intense. So I'm back in my Toyota. I look up the road and, you know, I look in the mirrors, nothing's coming. Put it in gear and away I go. And I drive up the road. And I drove up the road around about 80 metres, which is similar to 80 yards for Americans. And bang, just everything stopped. The vibration stopped, the feeling of being observed stopped, everything just stopped. And all of a sudden it was like going back into reality, back into like the here and now, like you and me talking. From that point, I remember looking at my hands physically shaking, so then I could see them shaking. The fear was, again, you know, the disbelief, the fear, the what the fuck was that went through my mind. I remember turning on the radio to 774, it's an ABC radio here, to try and get into, you know, back into some sense of reality, or, you know. From that point, I drove from there all the way down to a little town called Yarragon, and it's, well, I won't tell you exactly how far it is because it'll give away where the property is, and I don't want people to know about it because the owner doesn't want anyone to know about it. But let's say around about 20 kilometres, give or take a bit. And I got down to the traffic lights at the town of Yarragon, and I thought, who do I tell? Who the hell do I tell? You know, I just didn't know who to tell. And I thought about telling the police, you know. I thought I'll go to the police and tell them what happened. And then I had a bit of a rethink on that one. I thought, ooh, I tell the police, you know, I'll probably say, "Oh, come with me, son," and lock me up and put me in a nut house, you know. And so I drove home from there all the way back to Druin, which is about 20 odd kilometres. And I got back to my house, and I didn't tell my ex-wife, and I didn't tell my children. And I just tried to act normal. Now, after what's just happened to me, you want to try and act normal. Oh my God, it was unreal. It was just so hard. And I think in this life, everything has a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And I was very, very fortunate because I rang my two sisters, and one of them is very open and the other one's fairly open. And they, you know, they sort of believed me, but they didn't really know what to make of the whole thing. And then thankfully I ran into a lady, and I'm going to mention her name because she's a very important part of my life, Andrea Hearn here in Australia. And Andrea, I went to see her, and she told me, oh yeah, they're real and rah, rah, rah. And I just thought, what? And I was just blown away. And so then from that, she told me to get onto a lady called Mary Rodwell from Aston here in Australia. And Mary, you know, if it wasn't for her, I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'd be here, because I think I might have necked myself because I was so fearful. Got no idea. Okay, so I had to, you know, somehow or other get in contact with Mary, and I'd never ever heard of Mary Rodwell. Thought, who the hell's this person, you know? And I went, I think it was around about 3 months, give or take a bit, before I could tell my ex-wife, right? And with my ex-wife, like me and her could talk about anything, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, didn't matter. We'd talk. There's no boundaries about what we talked about. And I hadn't told her, but I'd been in contact with Mary and I'd been emailing Mary, and we'd arranged to make an appointment to meet her up in Canberra, which is the capital city of Australia. There was a big seminar happening up there. It was on UFOs and reality of ETs, or extraterrestrials. And I'm going to be honest, I knew nothing about any of this. You know, I'm going to be honest, I did have a little slight interest in UFOs, and I thought, well, we couldn't be the only people in the scheme of things. You know, realistically, when you look at how big the universe is, you know, come on, you can't be that stupid. But it was only, say, you know, maybe 2 out of 10 as far as the interest went. And so anyway, I went up to my brother and sisters up in Mount Dandenong, and we had tea up there. And I back in them days, I used to drink a bit more than I do, and I got a little bit drunk, and then we were coming home, and my ex-wife was driving home in the car, and I had to tell her, because I had to tell her I was going to Canberra, you know, so I had to tell her what happened. So I told her the same story as what I just told you, but, you know, and she was quite open to it, because she knows, you know, I don't lie, and she could see that, you know, I was, in the way I told the story, I was fearful. And then I had to tell her I had to go to Canberra, and she said, what for? And I said, well, I've got to go and see Mary Rodwell. So from there on, we skimped and scraped and got enough money to go to Canberra. And I remember, you know, getting the airline ticket and all that, and away I went, and I drove down to Tullamarine Airport here in Victoria, in Australia, and I flew to Canberra. And I got to the airport, and I was a little bit, you know, scared, didn't know what to think, you know. And I remember leaving my bag on the carousel, you know, when it come off the aeroplane. I went and hired a car, and I come back, and I'm thinking, where'd my bag go? And then I walk up, and here's all these security guards standing around looking at this bag going round and round. And finally, I just walked up with a big smirk on my face and picked up this bag and gave him a wave and walked off. And anyway, I went and booked a motel in Canberra, and then I did a recce. So I went from the motel out to where this seminar was going to be held in the daytime, just, you know, so that I'd know where to go, because it was going to start at 7 o'clock at night. Then I remember going to the War Memorial, and I went there, and here in Australia, we've got this massive big museum. It's got all things about war, and I don't understand war. I don't know why humans kill one another. It's just crazy. And humans killing one another is just the pits. And I remember standing there looking at all these poppies and all these names, and there was thousands of them. And I actually had tears in my eyes, you know. I just thought, this is crazy. Why do we do this? This is mental. Anyway, so from there, I went to the seminar that night, right? And I walk in there, right? And I had never ever been to a UFO convention or an ET thing, and I'm half expecting everyone to walk around with T-shirts on with, you know, ET phone home, and people with tinfoil hats and little antennas, you know, on their heads. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, oh God, this is going to be crazy. What am I doing here? I walked into the joint, and it was about, say, 10 past 7, I think it was. And I think it was actually going to start at 8 o'clock, the start of the lectures. And I wanted to be there way earlier. And I walk in, and I'm looking around, and everything's normal. You know, people are in, you know, casual clothing and look nice and neat, and people are in, you know, suits and ties. And I thought, wow, thank God for this, you know, because I just didn't know what to expect. I'd never, ever been to anything like this. I didn't know anything about really full-on stuff about UFOs or star visitors. I remember seeing a guy there. I met a guy, because I'm pretty easygoing. I can talk to just about anybody, as you can hear. And I met this guy called Alan, and I won't say his surname, but it's funny. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember this guy like I can remember. It's just funny how it sticks there. And Alan said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm here to have a talk to Mary Rodwell, because you know, I had an experience. I saw an extraterrestrial." And he's, wow, did you? And, oh, I've never met anyone that's ever seen one, you know, And he really clung to me. And I said, well, you know, I'll tell you the story or you'll hear about it. And so anyway, in walks Mary. And Mary, I don't know if you know Mary Roberts, she's not all that overly tall and she's got white hair. And I'm going to be honest, I look at Mary as my second mother. You know, I love her to death. Sorry, for how she helped me. Oh. And anyway, Mary walks in and everyone's flocking around her, you know, and I just let them all go for, you know, and they were all flocking around her for 10 or 15 minutes talking and chatting, and I'm just standing back, you know, in the corner. And finally the crowds dissipated a bit, or the people. So I walked over to Mary and put my hand out and shook her hand and said, "Hi, Mary, I'm Steve Harrison." And for all your viewers that don't know, my real name's Steve and my nickname's Mick. And anyway, she said, "Oh, Steve, I'm glad to see you, and I'm so glad to see you." And so I said to her, she said, "Well, how are you feeling?" And I said, "Oh, you know, I'm not in a really good place. I just don't know what to make of all this. I'm very fearful." And she said, "Okay, when would you like to do the meeting?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And she said, "How about we do it tomorrow after my second lecture at lunchtime?" And I was sort of all prepared to do it that night, which was the Friday night. And she said, "No, we'll do it tomorrow, Saturday afternoon." And I said, "Oh, okay, fine, that'd be great." So we sat all down in this big auditorium, and it was a fairly large crowd for UFO meetings, and you know, the associated stuff with star visitors. I guess there would have been, and I'm guessing 60 to 80 people, and that's a lot here in Australia because you don't get a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of sitting back looking at everybody, and you know, and again, they were just normal people. There was hardly anybody there that looked weird or unusual or peculiar. And then Mary started her lecture and she was having slides and showing pictures, and oh my God, honestly, Sheila, I freaked out. I just brought it all back. And I'm sitting there trying to act normal, but inside me, I was just freaked out, thinking, fuck, you know, and it just brought it all back. And it was really, really scary. And a couple of times there, I just had to, you know, do this, you know, pretend I was itching my forehead, and I just covering my face. I just couldn't look at it. It's just bringing way too close. And this was all just real stuff, happened to real people all around the world, and it's all come to me, and I've never seen this stuff, right? So the lecture finished, and I remember I got in my car and I drove back to my hotel room. And I got in there, and I can sleep really easily. And, you know, I got into bed, and this motel room was really large. It had a little kitchenette, then it had a dining room. It had the main bedroom that I was sleeping in, and it even had a laundry, and it was really quite big, and it was really, you know, nice. It's like a unit, I guess. But it was in a high-rise building about 5 stories high. And anyway, I get in there and I go to sleep. And around about 2:45 in the morning, all of a sudden I just wake up as if I haven't been asleep. And I hear this, all this scampering and paper shuffling. And I'm thinking, what is this? What is this? What's this noise? And again, fight or flight come into my mind. I remember lying in bed and I sat up and I clenched my fist, and I get into this fight mode. And I'm thinking, you know, I honestly thought someone was in my room, right? And I'm looking around, and, you know, and I'm not delusional or an idiot. I'm looking, and I hadn't been drinking or taking drugs or anything. And I'm just thinking, what is this? And all of a sudden, you know, after, I don't know, 30 seconds, it all stopped. And then I got out of bed and I'm, you know, sort of walking around inside the unit, you know, looking behind doors and looking around behind cupboards, thinking, you know, I just thought someone was in there. I opened the window and I'm looking outside down onto the street, and I'm thinking, what? That was phenomenal. Then I reckon it took me an hour to go back to sleep, and I finally went to sleep. Then I got up in the morning, had brekkie, and the lecture was going to start at 10 o'clock the next day. So I drove back out to the to the seminar, and I get there and kick back, and I met Alan again, and, you know, there was not as many people on the Saturday. And anyway, away went Mary again for the second half of her lecture, and again it was just bringing it all back, and I'm just thinking, oh my God. And there's just more and more and more stuff, you know, and it was freaky. Then finally, it all finished, and we had lunch, and then Mary said, okay, Steve, are you right for your interview? And I said, yeah, no worries. So previously to that morning, Alan had asked if he could sit in on the interview and just listen, but not interject or talk, just listen. And he had his girlfriend there who was a school teacher, and she was a very, you know, he told me straight out she's extremely skeptical. She doesn't believe in any of this stuff, but she'd like to listen to it too. And I said, well, that's fine, but please ask her not to say anything when I do the interview. I just want you guys to sit back, look and listen, and then at the end of it, maybe you can ask questions, but let me have my, you know, my space. So they did that, and anyway, so I sat down with Mary, and where I sat was in this beautiful room. You could overlook a lake called Lake Burley Griffin in Canberra, and there's a beautiful, you know, lake and trees, and there's swans and things swimming around in the river, and in the lake. And anyway, I kick back and I tell the story, and I tell it in way more detail than what I just told you. I went into every nook and cranny, you know, sort of minute by minute. And when I first ever used to tell this story, I used to tell it minute by minute. I now don't, because it's too long. And at the very end, you know, I told the story, and Mary looked at me and she said, is there anything you want to ask, Steve? Sorry. And I remember looking at Mary and saying, if this is all real, and I know it is, how do I protect, and at that time, you know, my wife and my children, talking at that time, my ex-wife now. And she looked at me and she reached out and put her hand on my hand, and she said, have you ever been harmed, Steve? Do you ever remember being harmed? And, you know, I sort of sat there for a bit, looking around, thinking about it, and I thought, well, yeah, I have. And she said, in what way? I said, oh, well, you know, I've been in fights at school and on the school train. I was in a few punch-ups and all that. She said, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. And I'm looking at her a bit weird. I didn't really know what she meant. And she said, by these beings, the little extraterrestrials, have they ever harmed you? And I sort of sat there and thought about it. I thought, what are you talking about? I've only seen one, and that didn't hurt me. It scared the crap out of me, you know. And she said, more than likely, Steve, you've been abducted since the age of 5 or 6, and you've been taken all your life, but you have no recall of it. And what they've done is finally, on March the 5th, 2008, at 3:45 in the afternoon, they've given you what they call your awakening. And now you're awake and aware of the reality of extraterrestrials or star visitors. And I sat there, Sheila, for a minute or two and tried to take that all in, right? She said, they haven't harmed you and they never will harm you, because if they're going to harm you, they could have done it long ago. And they haven't done that. They just haven't done that. And I contemplated that, and then I felt so much better, you know, realising that. And I said, thank you for that. And then after that, Alan beside me said, I've got a question to ask. Is it all right? And I said, yeah, no worries, go for it. And I remember Alan looking at me and looking at Mary and looking at me and looking at Mary. He sort of looked a few times, and he you could see he was uncomfortable. But he said, Mary, is Steve telling the truth? And he apologised to me as he went to say, he said, Steve, sorry, I've got to ask this question. I said, fine, ask what you want. And Mary looked at me and then looked at him, and again, a few glances either way. And then she just directed everything to Alan and said, I've interviewed and hypnotically regressed around about 2,000 people. And that's at the time now. I think Mary's up around 3,500 people throughout the world. And she said, yes, Steve is telling the truth. And she said, the way I can tell you that is because I can normally pick up on people, whether they're lying through face touching and, you know, rapid eye blinking or looking away and not making eye contact. And she said, yes, Steve is telling the truth. Now, with that, I remember I started crying again. I remember finally having someone that would listen and acknowledge what had happened. And honestly, Sheila, and for all your viewers out there, you've got no idea how much this affects people, and it affected me. And from that point, Mary said to me, go out, Steve, and research. And go out and do as much research as you can. And she said, if it resonates with you, it's true. And if it doesn't resonate, it's more than likely not true. But open your mind up, look at documentaries, talk to people, read books, and just go out there but try not to be fearful. Now, I'm going to be honest, it took me years to get over the fear, honestly. Like, the fear was the biggest hurdle. And once I got over that, now, you know, my fear is about 2 out of 10, you know, even now and then I still, you know, I think it's healthy to have a little bit of fear, because if you go about life with no fear, you know, you can get into trouble. You know, you've got to always be cautious, I guess. And it was life changing. You know, and I look at all the things that I've done in my life. Like, I was a pretty good runner when I was a kid. I learned to fly when I was 16 years of age. Like, I was flying aeroplanes before I could drive a car legally on the road, because you're not allowed to drive cars until you're 18 here in Australia, where you can fly an aeroplane at 16. I watched my children being born. I had a really good, successful career as a volunteer firefighter, and I worked my way up from a baggy-ass firefighter to what they call an air attack supervisor, where I used to direct water bombers onto fires. I had a fairly successful business with my father, you know, clearing trees away from power lines all through Gippsland in Victoria. And I've had a really good life. And all that is almost insignificant compared to what happened to me on that day. It's just life-changing. It made me do a 180-degree turn in life. I went through all different emotions. I went through anger, because I know we're lied to. And all you listeners out there, you need to know that you're lied to. Is anyone that thinks that there's no extraterrestrial star visitors or ET presence, well, I'm telling you there is. I know there is. And don't ever, ever, ever think there is not. And I found that the hardest to deal with is the lies through governments, media, alphabet, corporate, I better not say who, but, you know, and we're lied to. I really know that. I really know we're lied to. And then I was very lucky again. I joined a group here in Victoria, and I found that they weren't really telling the truth either. And I left them, and I met Lee Kerr. And Lee and myself formed Talk Group Australia. She's outside waving. And we formed Talk Group Australia, which is Truth, Awaken, Limitless Knowledge. And we're a platform where people can come to and talk about their extraterrestrial or star visitor experiences, whether they be abductions or whatever. And
and you have those, they're kind of all around the globe, right?
Yeah, they are now. Yeah, we've got them in New Zealand, India, Germany, Sweden. Where else? I can't think. And they're just different groups that have people come to them and they can share their experiences. And we just network amongst ourselves. Canada's another one. And they're really just all people that have had, that are experiences of they've had, you know, ET experiences or you know, star visitor experiences or anything for that matter. And with that, we're open to talk about everything, you know, like GMOs, well, you know, chemtrails, consciousness, you know, spirituality, anything. We cover the whole field, and we're open to listen. and non-judgmental. We endeavour not to judge anyone. We just, share their stories, not using names, and that's been the best thing ever. We've had a lot of people come to us and share their experiences, and it's like a platform where they can come and talk freely with no laughing or whatever.
Yes. Validation is so important when we are experiencing these multidimensional experiences. I know, for myself, I had to find a group of astral travelers so that I didn't feel like I was going insane.
Yeah.
And so then that was what the foundation of Heart Talks is a safe and supportive place to tell your stories, because using little words and trying to tell it to comfort others is not being authentic or true to ourselves. And that is so important, that we have a platform where we can just tell it like it is.
Yes.
It's healthy for us, and it's such a gift to others to have this platform.
I have a group called Yowie Down Under with Mick and Lee, because on the day I had a Yowie experience without even knowing it. Okay, have we got time to tell a little bit more? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Talk about the Yowies.
Yeah. Well, about 12 months after I talked to Mary up in Canberra, she came down to my house and we had a big barbecue, and it was a group of people that she knew, and she brought another guy down from Queensland, and she did a hypnotic regression with myself at my house, and that was eye-opening, because I didn't know that Yowies or Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yerrans or Almasties actually interacted with star visitors. I had no idea, right? And so here I am. I had Mary come to my house, and I lay down on a mattress on the floor, and she hypnotically regressed me and made me go back to the time. And when I went back, what I think I failed to mention in the story, what I just told you, was when I was looking around trying to work out what this feeling was. Excuse me, repeating myself with a coffee. I kept looking at this black thing up on the bank. Now, to me, this black thing looked like a tree stump, a burnt tree stump, or over we have what they call tree ferns, which grow really, really tall, and they're black. And I'm looking around, for these eagles and hawks or whatever. But every now and then I just turned, and I forgot to mention this. I kept turning and looking at this black thing, and it just kept getting my eye, And so I said to Mary, when we're about to do the hypnotic regression, I said, I want to find out what I was looking at. Why was I kept looking at this black tree fern or this tree stump? Because I kept looking at it. And so anyway, she regressed me, and we went into this really deep meditative state, and it was just fantastic. It just so much come out. And then she gets there and she says, okay, Steve, look at the tree stump. What is it? And in my mind, there I am, I'm looking at this thing. And I said, it's a tree stump. And she says, okay, look at it deeper, harder. And I'm looking at it deeper and harder. And I said, no, it's just a tree stump. She said, okay, Steve, put on your binoculars. Put on your binoculars and look at it. Really zoom into it. And it's really bizarre how your mind works. And also now I am looking so much closer. And I could see the back of a head. I could see very, very broad shoulders, and I could see this part of the arm here, but down by its side. And so what I'm looking at is the back of a black thing, with its head down slightly, and this part of the arm here. And she said, what are you seeing? And I'm going, wow, it's a Sasquatch, it's a Bigfoot, it's a Yowie. And I've actually got it recorded. I've only ever listened to it once since, and that was 9 years ago. And I distinctly hear myself saying, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or Yowie. And not knowing, that really threw me, because I thought, this is bizarre enough seeing an extraterrestrial, but then to see a Yowie on the same day, and I think, oh man, I've really lost the plot. And I honestly thought that. But then, I don't know how it happened, someone told me about Kiowani Laparitis, and Kiowani has got a book. And I thought, oh, I'll have to have a look at this. And then I go and buy this book, and wow. I just got there and I read the book. I couldn't put it down. It took me, well, I did put it down because I had to go to sleep, but it took me about 2 or 3 days to read it. And I've got all these pages ear tagged where, here's these people having the vibration. Here's these people feeling, being watched. Here's all these people seeing UFOs. Here's all these people, seeing the star visitors with the Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And I'll speed it up a bit. Also in the hypnotic regression, she said, "Oh, what happened when you saw the helicopter?" And she said, "I want you to get there and look at the helicopter." Wow. So here I am looking at the helicopter, and she said, "Okay, zoom into it, really look at it intensely." And next minute I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, what? And one half of it was the helicopter, so I could see the cockpit and the rotors, but then the back of it was elliptical, and it was a grey colour, right? And she said, "What are you seeing?" And I said, "I'm seeing one half of it being a helicopter and the other half of it being an elliptical thing. It looks like a UFO. It's grey and elliptical." And then later on, after I'd come out of the regression and we sat down and I had a cup of tea and sort of, relaxed, I felt a bit tired and drawn. She explained some of the things that I'd said, and I had recall of most of it, but some of it I don't. And she said, "What was happening, with the helicopter?" Because I drew what I saw, and I showed her. And she said, "Well, what's happening there is your conscious mind is telling you you're seeing a helicopter, but your subconscious is also telling you you're seeing a craft." Now, I've since found out that extraterrestrials can cloak. They can make UFOs look like helicopters. They can look like clouds. Yes. They can look, interdimensional, like see-through. They can be bright lights. They can, and I have that ability. And I had all that in the one day. So I had the full 9 yards in the one day, I tell you. And I think the acknowledgement of Kiowani's book, and then meeting Mary, and now Mary Rodwell and myself and Lee are very, very close friends. Kiowani and Kelly over in Washington are very close friends. We love them to death because we're all now on the same page. And since then, I've had lots of Yowie interaction. I've witnessed Yowies interdimensionally. I've had one walk past me within 2 feet of me. I could have touched it. When I was down at a place called Foster, I was in a motel room down there, and I was asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up and I looked, and there was this about an 8 foot tall blue being, and this being looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It had muscles on muscles and a six-pack and really ripply, like it looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, honestly, but the blue of it was the most beautiful blue I've ever seen, right? Like, the only way I can describe the blue, the only thing that's even come close to it is I went snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, and there's these huge big clams, and they're massive, and they've got this iridescent blue on their shell or on their flesh, and it's the most beautiful, vivid blue you would ever see, and this blue looked like this being, and this being was transparent. I could see straight through it. And then all over its arms and its head and its body, it had an aura about this big that was shining blue, and the blue was also reflecting off all of the room. And I remember looking at this, and to me it was like looking at my long-lost brother. I really felt a heart connection with this being. Yes. For years, I had no idea what it was. People said, it was probably an Elohim or this or that, and everyone's swinging all these different ideas at me, and I have no idea. And the only thing I really think at this time was either, I'm guessing it may be a blue avian, I'm guessing, or it was a yowie interdimensionally standing there looking at me in a form. Because what's really interesting, we get lots and lots of photographs, and they've got blue auras in them or forms, of this beautiful blue. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes me think this blue was a yowie. That's the only thing I can put it down to. And we've had multiple UFO sightings and yowie experiences. Lee's seen one yowie and one Sasquatch in Chula, up near where Kelly and Kiwani's seen canoe. We've met some beautiful.
Magical for me too. I saw one while I was there. It was amazing.
Did you?
I saw it in Igor's face when Igor was up there doing his speech. It was the first time this ever happened to me. Me and Frosty and I think it was Sean, all three of us saw the same thing, and the face just metamorphosed as he was talking. It was the first time I'd ever seen that. It was amazing.
Yeah,
I get that, the face too. I remember the shape of the face. That was a magical weekend, and I'm still friends. I'm still in contact with. That was a family gathering.
Oh yeah, yes.
Very family.
Yeah.
Multidimensionally family.
Yeah, I honestly believe all the people that were there were from. I think we're a big family group.
Yes.
I think a lot of people there were ex-Sasquatch, Bigfoot or Yowies from a previous life. Yes. When you look at the size of some people that were there, like Igor was a very tall man. There was
Meryl. I mean, yes, it was a very unique experience, and to have you guys come all the way out from Australia was just amazing. There were people from all over the U.S. there. That was magical.
It was, and I've met so many people there that were so friendly, and a lot of them are friends on Facebook, like Sean and yourself, and who else?
All of them.
There's just so many. I can't even think of them all. But there's heaps of them, and friends from around the world, Marcus and Susan and all them. Yeah, it was fantastic. We felt so welcomed over there. That was the big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, we're running out of time here, but
that's okay.
The most important thing in this message is the truth that ETs are real.
Definitely.
Okay. And I know you had your fear factor. Okay. But I also believe that that we are all one big family.
We are. I know that.
And just because your human self was afraid, that doesn't mean that it was a bad experience.
Definitely not. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. And that the story I just told was at the time. Now, 9 years on, I'm totally different. I understand that that star visitors, let's just say what I do. And I will say this because I think it's important for people to know. Benevolent, which means good, is a majority. There's a few fence sitters when it comes to star visitors, and there is a very, very minority of star visitors that are malevolent. And I know that, and I'm not going to not say that because you've got to have the true picture.
Right.
But what's come out of all of this, I have some amazing, what I call abilities since that day. I believe I had an upgrade through the vibration. They were upgrading me. My whole body to bring me awake and aware and to get abilities, and it's amazing what I can actually do now. And it's a lot of stuff that me and Lee laugh about what that me and her do, but we just don't share it much. But some of it's like driving under street lights and they go on or come on and they'll go off. Street lights, in fact, I'll give you just a very quick one. Just the other night in my job, I was parked up on a hill because we had a bit of a lay time between jobs. I watched a green shooting star come down to the ground, and you don't see green ones very often. Within 10 seconds, all the street lights where I was parked went off for about half a kilometre down the hill and half a kilometre back up the hill.
Wow.
Whoa, and I was talking to my work partner and I said, this is what happens to me. And I stepped out of my vehicle and I looked around, and I'm thinking, where are you?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything and I didn't really sense a lot. And it could have been just coincidence, but a lot of what happens with me, that's just a typical example of what happens with me. It's just amazing. Very interesting little world we live in, and I'm so grateful to meet someone like yourself. You're a lovely person, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk. It's great.
You are most welcome. I want anyone who's listening to know that Mick and Lee are a safe and supportive place that you can share your stories. You do not have to be alone. You do not have to be afraid to talk about it. This is becoming the new normal. This is the normal for us.
It is.
And we are laying a foundation so that anyone, all of you who are having these experiences, know that you have a family with us that you can talk about. We're going to leave contact information if you want to talk to Lee or Mick. And we so appreciate you joining us today. And thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. It's been wonderful.
All right. Peeps, from my heart to yours, namaste.
Thank you.